let's analyze the story of Samson. All right. Now, Samson went down to Timnah and saw a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. All right. So let's look up the Philistines. The Philistine is a member of a non Semitic people of ancient southern Palestine who came into conflict with Israelites during the 12th and 11th centuries BC. So these are the natives of the land of Canaan, right? Before the land was overtaken by the Hebraic people, okay? According to the Bible, the Philistines from whom the country of the Palestine took its name from Crete and settled in southern coastal plain of Canaan in the 12th century BC. So what it appears to me, the first thing I'm thinking is well, Philistine is, you see this phi or Philly or Phili, that spells out, that's Greek. So this is a Greek word that represents Palestine. So Philistine, Palestine, the same thing. It's just a Greek word, right? It says it took its name from Crete and settled the southern coastal plain of Canaan. So let's quickly look at that because it's good to see the map. Okay, first we're going to look at Crete, which is an island in Greece. All right, and so let's go to the map. And we're going to look at Crete. All right, here's Athens. All right, and let's go to, here's the land of Canaan here, right? So Crete, and here's the land of Canaan. This is what we're talking about. So the Palestine here, this is the West Bank. This is where, even to this day, this struggle continues, right? Now, you got to keep in mind that Abram, he ended up coming across the Fertile Crescent, across the Jordan, and he settled in this region here. Now, he had two sons. First one, Ishmael, he's the unrecognized son. And here, if you look right here where the Suez Canal is, where it cuts Africa off from Asia, from the rest of the world here, you'll see it, a country named after Ishmael called Ishmaela. So here south is the region that's described as where the Abraham's sons who were by his concubines or his wives who were not from the land of his kindreds. So what we're seeing here is the same thing going on. So he went up and told his father and mother, saying, I have seen a woman in Timnah of the daughters of the Philistines. Now, therefore, get her for me as a wife. Right? Then his father and mother said to him, is there no woman among the daughters of your brethren or among all the people that you must go and get a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines? So, this is a tradition that stems back from Genesis, right? And we can go anywhere. Let's go to the Dinah incident, right? And the Dinah incident, and this was a very similar situation where Dinah or Shisham spoke to his father, saying, "Get me this young woman as a wife." And in this case, Dinah was the daughter of Jacob, right? She was basically an Israelite, right? So these are two different nationalities who want to be together, but because there is a cultural difference, right? They're not circumcised, right? Remember, Jacob heard that he defiled Dinah, his daughter. Now, his sons were with his livestock in the field. So Jacob held his peace until they came. Then Humar, the father of Shechem, went out to Jacob to speak with him, and the sons of Jacob came in from the field when they heard it, and the men were grieved, and they were very angry because he had done a disgraceful thing by Israel by lying with Jacob's daughter, a thing which ought not to be done. All right. So the uncircumcised and the circumcised are not supposed to be mixing. All right. And so the way you can tell if you are in the house of the house of Israel, is if you've been circumcised. You are keeping the tradition of this ritual. Now, but Humar spoke to them, saying, the soul of my son Shechem longs for your daughter. Please give her to him as a wife, and make marriages with us. Give your daughters to us, and take our daughters of yourselves, so you shall dwell with us. Well, they end up deceiving, right? The sons of Jacob answered Shechem, Humar, his father, and spoke deceitfully, because he defiled Dinah, their sister. And they said to him, we cannot do this thing to give our sister who is to give our sister to one who is uncircumcised, for that would be a reproach to us. But on this condition we will consent to you, if you will become as we are, if every male of you is circumcised. All right. So then we will give our daughters to you, and we will take your daughters to us, and we will dwell with you, and we will become one people. All right. But if you will not heed us and be circumcised, then we will take our daughters and be gone. And their words pleased Humar and Shechem, and the young man did not delay to do the thing, because he was delighted in Jacob's daughter. He was more honorable than all the household of his father. See, this is the key here, is because a lot of people say that he took advantage of Dinah, and they say all types of terrible accusations, but it's simply here about the matter of circumcision, and the two races, or the two nations. That's what this is all is about. Okay. So, and Humar and Shechem, his sons, came to the gate of their city and spoke with the men of the city, saying, these men are at peace with us, therefore let them dwell in the land and trade in it. For indeed the land is large enough for them. Let us take their daughters as wives, to us as wives, and let us give them our daughters. So again, the mixing of the races. Only on this condition will the men consent to dwell with us, to be one people, if every male among the circumcised, every one of us is circumcised as they are circumcised. We will not their livestock, their property, and an animal of theirs be ours. Okay. Only let us consent to them, and they will dwell to us. So Shechem and his people seen abundance. They was like, we have plenty of land. We have plenty of space for these guys. Let them come in. Let's become one people. Look, they got livestock. They have property too. So if we become one people, right, we will enlarge our ecosystem, right? We will enlarge our space, and we enlarge our possessions. And all who went out of the gates of his city heeded Humar and Shechem, his son. Every male was circumcised, all who were out of the gate of the city. Now it came to pass on the third day, when they were in pain, that the two sons of Jacob, Simeon and Levi, Dinah's brothers, each took his sword and came boldly upon the city and killed all the males. So that's very important to understand, that this is part of their military strategy. They want to first take out all the males. And they killed Humar and Shechem, his son, with the edge of the sword, and took Dinah from Shechem's house and went out. And they do these things. They engage with deception, right? So this is very clear. It's the only thing is that if we're being taught from the institutions in which they control the narrative, and we just keep passing on and on and on the same narrative, and not checking the word for ourselves, we lose the meaning of what is being described here. But this is a very valid and relevant story here. All right. Now, the sons of Jacob came upon the slain and plundered the city because their sister had been defiled. They took their sheep, oxen, their donkey, what was in the city and what was in the field, and all their wealth, and their little ones and their wives they took captive. Okay. The children and the women are the ones that's taken captive. So even to this day, in this current reality, the male energy, right? The patriarch, the head of the house, the father, that concept is being xed out through a subversive war tactic. The same outcome, but not is just not by the sword. It's more about the word or the programming. All right. But the male is attacked, and then the female and the children becomes part of the house of the conqueror, right? So they took captive and they plundered even all that was in the houses. Then Jacob said to Simeon and Levi, "You have troubled me by making me obnoxious amongst the inhabitants of the land, amongst the Canaanites and the Perizzites. And since I am few in number, they will gather themselves together against me and kill me." So again, they're afraid of the unity. They are actually outnumbered. All right. "I shall be destroyed, my household and I, but they shall," all right. But they said, "Should he treat our sister like a harlot?" So this is much like the what sparked the Black Wall Street situation, right? Whereas, the two races, basically have a fallout due to an incident between a man and a woman of two different races. All right. And so that's used to justify the demolition, the decimation of the people. So there is one little part that I need to read here in 35:1. It says, "Then God said to Jacob, Arise, go up to Bethel and dwell there and make an altar there to God who appeared to you when you fled from the face of Esau, your brother." That's important. "And Jacob said to his household and to all who were with him." So Jacob's household, and Jacob is Israel. Name was changed to Israel. So Jacob, or Israel's household, right? This is including the women and children who he had just obtained from defeating Shechem and Humar, right? Now he said, "Put away the foreign gods that are among you, purify yourselves," which means get rid of your gods, your knowledge of yourself, right? "And change your garments." All right. "Then let us arise and go to Bethel, and I will make an altar there to God who answered me in the day of distress and has been with me in the way which I have gone." So they gave Jacob all the foreign gods which were in their hands, the ankh, and the earrings which were in their ears, and Jacob hid them under the terebinth tree. All right. And this is alluding to the tree of knowledge of yourself, your ancestry, that your knowledge of your roots that connects you to your divine. All right. The truth. All right. "But they hid them under the terebinth tree, which was by Shechem. And they journeyed, and the terror of God was upon the cities that were all around them, and they did not pursue the sons of Jacob." All right. "So Jacob came to Luz, that is Bethel, which is in the land of Canaan." All right. So this is where we are, here in the land of Canaan. And this is this basically the throne of God, right? Where men wrestle, the Lords wrestle. So back to Judges 14, we now have a better idea of what the issue is with the uncircumcised Philistines. It's the same situation. And Samson said to his father, get her for me, for she pleases me well. You know, but his father and mother did not know that it was of the Lord that he was seeking an occasion to move against the Philistines. For at that time, the Philistines had dominion over Israel. See, initially, the Palestinians, which the Greeks renamed the Philistines, right, had dominion over the land that is now called Israel. Israel is the later name, the name of the perspective from those who are telling us the story in the Bible. So Samson went down to Timnah with his father and mother and came to the vineyard of Timnah. Now, to his surprise, a young lion came roaring against him, and the Spirit of the Lord came mightily upon him, and he tore the lion apart as one would have torn apart a young goat, though he had nothing in his hand. But he did not tell his father and mother what he had done. Then he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. After some time, when he returned to go to get her, he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the carcass of the lion. So behold, a swarm of bees and honey were in the carcass of the lion. He took some of it in his hands and went along eating. When he came to his father and mother, he gave some of them, and they also ate. But he did not tell them that he had taken the honey out of the carcass of the lion. Now I'm going to tell you, this kind of reminds me of Genesis when Eve took of the fruit, right? When she seen that the tree was good for food, it was pleasant to eyes, and the tree desirable to make one wise, she took of the fruit and ate. She also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. Then the eyes of both of them are open. So now they had knowledge, and they knew that they were naked, and they sewed fig leaves together and made themselves coverings. Right? So this kind of reminds me of this point, but the only thing is that in this situation, Samson did not share the information. So he kept his parents in the dark, right? He did not tell in this situation. So then he went down and talked with the woman, and she pleased Samson well. After some time, when he returned to get her, he turned aside to see the carcass of the lion. And behold, a swarm of bees. Oh, okay. All right. We already read that part. All right. Was in the carcass. He took some of it in his hands and went along eating. And when he came to his father and mother, he gave to them, and they also ate, but he did not tell them he had taken the honey out of the carcass of a lion. So his father went down to the woman, and Samson gave a feast there, for young men used to do so. Okay. And it happened when they saw him that they brought 30 companions to be with him. So, young men throw parties, makes sense, right? And somebody brought 30 shorties to be with him. All right. So a bunch of ladies. Then Samson said to them, let me pose a riddle for you. If you can correctly solve and explain it to me within the 7 days of the feast, then I will give you 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothing. So basically you made a wager or a bet, right? If you solve this riddle, I'll give you these clothes. But if you cannot explain it to me, then you shall give me 30 linen garments and 30 changes of clothing. All right. And they said to him, pose your riddle that we may hear it. So he said to them, out of the eater came something to eat, and out of the strong came something sweet. Now for 3 days they could not explain the riddle, but it came to pass on the 7th day that they said to Samson's wife, entice your husband that he may explain the riddle to us, or else we will burn you and your father's house with fire. So basically, they made this bet. They agreed to this bet, and over this riddle, over this bet, basically over 30 garments, right? 30 changes of clothes, right? Some outfits, right? They go to Samson's wife and tell her to entice her husband to explain the riddle so that they don't lose the bet. And they said, or else we will burn you and your father's house with fire. So that's pretty ferocious, right? Have you invited us in order to take what is ours? Is that not so? So they went and threatened his wife and gave her an ultimatum. Then Samson's wife wept on him and said, you only hate me. You do not love me. You have posed a riddle to the sons of my people, but you have not explained it to me. And he said to her, look, I have not explained it to my father or my mother. So should I explain it to you? Now she had wept on him the 7 days while their feast lasted. And it happened on the 7th day that he told her, because she pressed him so much. Then she explained the riddle to the sons of her people. So the men of the city said to him on the 7th day before the sun went down, what is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? And he said to them, if you had not plowed with my heifer, you would not have solved my riddle. Now, again, this is giving me the vibes back where we just came from in Genesis, right? And Genesis 3, because, Eve, she did what came natural to a wife. She took of the fruit, right? She got the knowledge. She got the wisdom. She sought after it, right? She saw the tree was good for food, that it was pleasant to the eyes. So she confirmed it. There's nothing wrong with her eyes. She saw it was, pleasant to the eyes, and that is a tree desirable that make one wise. So it had holistic properties to it, right? So she took of the fruit and she ate, and she also gave to her husband with her, and he ate. But see, their master, Lord just mean master, punished them for that, right? He said, because you had heeded your wife, right? And he cursed them. So my point here is that in this situation, the wife is being put against her husband. You see what I'm saying? The wife is being played against the husband, as opposed to initially the wife and the husband. The wife was on the husband's side, right? She shared the knowledge with them. So Samson, eventually this causes plagues or causes conflict. It comes in between, because now it's, he told his wife, the wife goes and tell her, they use death threats. So now it's shady business, right? So the men in the city said to him on the 7th day before the sun went down, what is sweeter than honey, and what is stronger than a lion? Basically, the answer is honey and lion. And he said to them, if you had not plowed with my heifer. So he called her a heifer. When your auntie call you a heifer, you're not happy. And basically they saying that a plow is a large farming implement with one or more blades fixed in a frame drawn by a tractor, right? To turn up the earth, basically threaten her, right? Make her scared. He called her my heifer because he sound like he's upset. That's a female cow, right? Young female cow that has not born a calf. So she has not yet born a calf. You will not have solved my riddle. So then the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily, and he went down to Ashkelon, and killed 30 of their men, took their apparel, and gave the changes of clothes to those who had explained the riddle. Right? And gave the changes of clothes to those who had. So he went, the Spirit of the Lord came upon him mightily. He went down to Ashkelon, the Ashkenaz. That's what I'm thinking. Thinking now. Let's see what it says here. The Ashkelon is a coastal city in the southern district of Israel on the Mediterranean coast, 50 kilometers south of Tel Aviv. All right. So he went to the southern district of Israel, right? So down to the south, where it's a little bit darker complexion people. And the modern city is named after the ancient seaport of Ashkelon, which was destroyed in 1270 and whose remains can now be seen at the archaeological site on the southwestern edge of the that's it. That's all they got there. All right. So you can go see this place, right? It's here in the south. So if we look at Tel Aviv, it's here. So it's southern, right here in the Gaza Strip. Okay. So he went down and killed 30 of their men, took their apparel, and gave the changes of clothing to those who had explained the riddle. So his anger was aroused, and he went back up to his father's house, and Samson's wife was given to his companion, who had been his best man. After a while, in the time of wheat harvest, it happened that Samson visited his wife with a young goat. And he said, "Let me go into my wife into her room. But her father would not permit him to go in. Her father said, "I really thought that you thoroughly hated her. Therefore, I gave her to your companion." And that's some crazy stuff. "Is not her younger sister better than she is? Please take her instead." And Samson said to them, "This time I shall be blameless regarding the Philistines if I harm them." Then Samson went and caught 300 foxes, and he took torches, turned the foxes tail to tail, and put a torch between each pair of tails. When he had set the torch on fire, he let the foxes go into the standing grain of the Philistines and burned up both the shock and the standing grains, as well as the vineyards and olive groves. Then the Philistines said, "Who has done this?" And they answered Samson, "The son-in-law of the Timnite, because he has taken his wife and given her to his companion." So he took his wife and gave it to his best man. All right. So the Philistine came up and burned her and her father with fire. Samson said to them, "Since you would do a thing like this, I will surely take revenge on you, and after that I will cease." So he attacked them hip and thigh with the great slaughter. Then he went down and dwelt in the cliff of the rock of Etam. Now the Philistines went up, encamped in Judah, and deployed themselves against Lehi. And the men of Judah said, "Why have you come up against us?" So they answered, "We have come up to arrest Samson, to do him as he has done to us." Then 3,000 men of Judah went down to the cliff of the rocks of Edom and said to Samson, "Do you not know the Philistines rule over us? What is this you have done to us? And he said to them, as they did to me, so I have done to them. But they said to him, we have come down to arrest you, that we may deliver you into the hand of the Philistines. Then Samson said to them, swear to me that you will not kill me yourselves. So they spoke to him, saying, no, but we will tie you securely and deliver you into the hand, but we will not surely kill you. And they bound him with 2 new ropes and brought him up from the rock. When he came to Lehi, the Philistines shouted against him. Then the Spirit of the Lord came mighty upon him, and the ropes that were on his arms became like flax that is burned with fire, and his bonds broke loose from his hands. He found a fresh jawbone of a donkey, reached out his hand and took it and killed 1,000 men with it. Then Samson said, with the jawbone of a donkey, heaps upon heaps, with the jawbone of a donkey, I have slain 1,000 men. And so it was, when he had finished speaking, that he threw the jawbone from his hand and called that place Ramath. Okay? Ramath, Lehi. Now, then he became very thirsty, so he cried out to the Lord, he said, you have given this great deliverance by the hand of your servant, and now shall I die of thirst and fall into the hand of the uncircumcised. All right. So we know that Nimrod, he was of the circumcised, and he took his vengeance on the people in the south, on the Philistines, the Palestinians, the inhabitants. So we were taught that Samson is a black man with dreads, and that's the depiction that I was always given. But you know, we don't really know what his complexion is up this point. But I know that he is of the house of Israel. He is of the Abrahamic, because he is circumcised, and he is against those who are uncircumcised, which are really the indigenous or the original inhabitants of the land, which in this story is the Philistines, right, or the Palestinians. And just like in the story of Shechem and Humar, you know, they were the natives, right? So God split the hollow place that is in Lehi, and water came out, and he drank, and his spirit returned, and he revived. Therefore he called his name En Hakakor, which is in Lehi to this day. And he judged Israel 20 years in the days of the Philistines. Now, Samson went to Giza and saw a harlot there, and went into her in Gaza. So here they are. He's down here in the south in the Gaza. Okay. And when the Gazites were told Samson has come here, they surrounded the place and laid in wait for him all night at the gate of the city. They were quiet all night, saying, in the morning when it is daylight, we will kill him. And Samson lay low till midnight. Then he arose at midnight, took hold of the doors of the gate of the city and the 2 gate posts, pulled them up, bar and all, pulled them on his shoulders, and carried them to the top of the hill that faces Hebron. Afterward, it happened that he loved a woman in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her and said to her, entice him and find out where his great strength lies, and by what means we may overpower him, that we may bind him to afflict him, and every one of us will give you 1,100 pieces of silver. So we already know that kind of reminds you of a Judas, right? 30 pieces of silver. But in this situation, it said 1,100 pieces of silver, which makes 30 pieces of silver seem like nothing, right? But, this is another conflict that I'm having is because Delilah wasn't his wife. You see what I'm saying? This was a woman he had loved in the valley of Sorek, whose name was Delilah, but this wasn't his wife. His wife was actually given away to his best man. And so they were eliminated. You know what I mean? They were eliminated. So she's no longer part of the story. Now he's dealing with other women, right? Women in the land in the south. And the lords of the Philistines came up to her, right? And they told her to do the same thing they told Samson's wife to do. So Delilah said to Samson, please tell me where your great strength lies, and with what you might be bound to afflict you. And Samson said to her, if they bind me with 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. So the lords of the Philistines brought up to her 7 fresh bowstrings, not yet dried, and she bound him with that. Now men were lying in wait, staying with her in the room. And she said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. But he broke the bowstrings as a strand of yarn breaks when it touches fire. So the secret of his strength was not known. Then Delilah said to Samson, look, you have mocked me and told me lies. Now please tell me what you may be bound with. So he said to her, if they bind me securely with new ropes that have never been used, then I shall become weak and be like any other man. So this is the second time he tells her some information. All right. Therefore, Delilah took new ropes and bound him up with them and said to him, the Philistines are upon you, Samson. And men were lying in wait, staying in the room, but he broke them off his arms like a thread. Delilah said to Samson, until now you have mocked me and told me lies. Tell me what you may be bound with. And he said to her, if you weave the 7 locks of my head into a web of the loom. So she wove it tightly with the batten of the loom and said to him, the Philistines are among you, Samson. But he awoke from his sleep and pulled out the batten and the web from the loom, and pulled out the batten and the web from the loom. Then she said to him, how can you say I love you when your heart is not with me? You have mocked me these 3 times and have not told me where your strength lies, your great strength lies. And it's funny because not only was Jesus sold out for 30 pieces of silver, in this situation, she was enticed with 1,000 pieces of silver. Or what was it, 1,100 pieces of silver? Well, let's see. How much money they said they was going to give it to her? 1,100 pieces of silver, right? Not only that, but you remember when the 3 times, all right? So there's some things going on here that I think that, is part of ritual, or, that you're going to see in the story of Christ, right? So, so it's been 3 times now. And my whole thing is like, how many times does it happen? Does he have to tell her this information to know that she's going to betray him? Right? Yeah, he lied to her 3 times. But she betrayed him each of the 3 times. She set him up each 3 times. All right. So it came to pass when she pestered him daily with her words and pressed him so that his soul was vexed to death, that he told her all his heart and said to her, no razor has ever come upon my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. If I am shaven, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like any other man. So, I'm very surprised that he would tell her this, right? Now, he's been a Nazarite, like Nazi. You see this? Ritual, rite. Like, this is a very important thing, you know what I mean? A religious or other solemn ceremonial act, all right? A body of customary observance, right? Nazi rite. The Nazi, all right, is it's it's German, it's Germanic. All right, it's associated with the Ashkenaz of Genesis. If you go to Genesis 10 and you look at the sons of Japheth, and then you see the Ashkenaz, the Ashkenaz is biblical descendants of Noah and the father of German peoples. The Ashkenazi. You can add an I to that. You can even get more information on that. So you see, this has a lot to do with the number one, the Jewish people or Central Eastern European descent, Yiddish speaking people, which is a form of a Germanic or European language, right? A language used by Jews in Central and Eastern Europe before the Holocaust. It was originally a German dialect with words from Hebrew and several modern languages, and is today spoken mainly in the U.S., Israel, and Russia. So you'll see the relationship between the Nazarite, the Ashkenaz, and the Japheth, right? The Germanic people. An Israelite consecrated to the service of God under vows to abstain from alcohol, let their hair grow, and avoid defilement by contact with corpse. All right? So he had been a Nazarite. We're associating, really been taught to think of Samson as more of an African type character with dreads. And we're not the only people that can grow our hair out. You see what I'm saying? I mean, others cannot shave their head. So all he said is, no razor has ever come to my head, for I have been a Nazarite to God from my mother's womb. He's practiced a certain faith system which prevents him from drinking alcohol, cutting their hair, or coming in contact with dead bodies, right? If I am shaven, then my strength will leave me, and I shall become weak and be like other men. When Delilah saw that he had told her all his heart, he sent and called for the lords of the Philistines. She sent and called for the lords of the Philistines, the Palestines, saying, come up once more, for he has told me all his heart. So the lords of the Philistines or Palestine, this is a Greek word used to describe the non-Semitic people of ancient southern Palestine, okay, came up to her and brought the money in their hands, all right? Then she lulled him to sleep on her knees and called for a man and had him shave off the 7 locks on his head. Then she began to torment him, and his strength left him. All right? Then she began to torment him, and his strength left him. And she said, "The Philistines are upon you, Samson." So he awoke from his sleep and said, "I will go out before at other times and shake myself free." So I think that's supposed to be as other times. "I will go out as before at other times and shake myself free." But he did not know that the Lord had departed from him. The Lord departed from him, right? Because of his ritual. He was a Nazarite ritual, right? The ritual. So the Lord had separated from him. Then the Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza. The Philistines took him and put out his eyes and brought him down to Gaza. They took him to the Gaza Strip. All right? They bound him with bronze fetters and became a grinder in the prison. And he became a grinder in the prison. However, the hair of his head began to grow again after it had been shaven. Now the lords of the Philistines gathered together to offer a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god, and to rejoice. And they said, "Our God has delivered into our hands Samson, our enemy." Our God has delivered into our hands Samson, our enemy. Now, keep in mind, right here it says, now the lords of the Philistines, the Palestinians, right, gathered together and offered a great sacrifice to Dagon, their god. So you see, they had their own lords, but it's just lowercase because he's not the Abrahamic Lord. He's not the Lord of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And they had their own gods, but you see it's lowercase because it is not the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. All right. All right. Now, our God has delivered into our hands Samson, our enemy. So when they had defeated enemy, they associate that with God, right? When the people saw him, they praised their God, for they said, "Our God has delivered unto our hands our enemy, the destroyer of our land, and the one who multiplied our dead." All right. So they, for a moment, feel like they received justice. And they are admitting that the Nazarite are the enemies of the inhabitants of their gods. Now, I'm not picking sides. I'm just saying that there's two sides. And if I'm a African and I'm relating to the indigenous people of the black lands, the African lands, Samson is the enemy. You see what I'm saying? Of the inhabitants. All right. All right. Now, when the people saw him, they praised their God. And this is going to be part of the challenge, right? Our God has delivered us. So it happened when their hearts were merry that they said, "Call for Samson that he may perform for us." So they called for Samson from the prison and he performed for them. And they stationed him between the pillars. Then Samson said to the lad who held him by the hand, "Let me feel the pillars which supports the temple so that I can lean on them. Let me feel the pillars which support the temple so that I can lean on them. Now the temple was full of men and women, and the lords of the Philistines were there, about 3,000 men and women on the roof watching while Samson performed. Then Samson called to the Lord, saying, O Lord God. So he's talking to his God, Lord God. Right? Now keep in mind this, you see how this says to the Lord here. You see how this ORD is capitalized. But then he says, O Lord God, remember me, I pray. Strengthen me, I pray. Just this once, O God, that I may with one blow take vengeance on the Philistines for my 2 eyes. And we are talking about the Palestinians. This is the Greek word for the Palestinians, the ancient people in the south of Israel, right? And Samson took hold of the 2 middle pillars which supported the temple, and he braced himself against them, one on his right and the other on his left. Now here he's praying, pray. And this, this kind of invoke, I guess, or reminds me of when Christ, came into the remember he went out and he cursed the fig tree, and then he gave, I don't know why I went to 20, it's 21. He came to the fig tree. Let's see here. And he said, surely I say to you, if you have faith and do not doubt, you will not only be able to do what was done to the fig tree, but also if you say to this mountain, be removed and be cast into the sea, it will be done. And whatever things you ask in prayer, believing, you will receive. So that is what comes to mind, right? He prayed, and his prayer went precisely as such, right? So then Samson said, let me die with the Philistines. And he pushed with all his might, and the temple fell on the lords and all the people who were in it. He kamikazed them. So the dead that he killed at his death were more than he had killed in his life. And his brothers and all his father's household came down and took him and brought him up and buried him between Zorah and Estonol in the tomb of his father Manoah. All right. The man I'm seeing Manoah. He had judged Israel 20 years. All right. So that's the end of the story of Samson. Again, what we see in the story of Samson is it's not quite as what has been told. Samson, the son of Sam, right? He was a Nazarite. Samson, in definition here, by definition, an Israelite leader, probably the 11th century, famous for his strength. He fell in love with Delilah and confided to her that his strength lay in his uncut hair. She betrayed him 4 times to the Philistines, who cut off his hair and blinded him. But his hair grew again, and he pulled down the pillars of the house, destroying himself and a large gathering of the Philistines, the Palestinians. And really, this was a battle of gods. You know what I mean? Once the Philistines brought their God involved, now it's between their God and is the God of Israel, and you see how it ends. All right, you see how it ends. Now this has to do more not with Samson representing a African. He's really representing the Ashkenaz, the Germanic people, right? And you know, if we let's just put up Nazarite. Nazarite. All right, a Nazarite is a man or woman who voluntarily took a vow, which is described. Oh yeah, we already looked that up. Yeah, we looked that up. It's a subculture, right? But the Nazi, we already know, represents the Germanic people. And I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm meaning that in just a biblical or in the way of what it is, what a Nazarite is. All right. So the Nazarite, the Nazi, the Ashkenaz all go back to Germanic Israelite people. And they can grow hair and they can grow locks just like a black man can grow hair and grow locks. Now, the color of this man's skin wasn't really made clear. But I think when people seen that he had 7 locks, we automatically associate the locks with the blacks. But I'm not seeing that here. I'm seeing the Palestinians, the Philistines, the Palestinians. Now, of course, a Greek word has replaced the word for the ancient southern Palestine people. But if they were ancient, this means that these are the inhabitants before the Semitic people migrated into that land. Before Abraham came in to the land of Canaan, right? So these people would be more of the African ancestry or descent than Samson. Samson is from the north. He was taken down. He went down into the land of the Philistines. He went down to Gaza. So that's why I think it's important to put the map here so we can see he went down to Gaza. Delilah was not his wife. He lost his wife. His wife was given to his best friend. They wouldn't let him go into his wife because her father did not permit it. Her father gave her away to his companion, to his boy. And then they tried to give him his sister, but Samson did not accept. He wanted his wife. And they gave him to be with his companion, his friend, his best man. So, you know, it's kind of twisted. It's messed up. But this kind of goes back to racism when it comes down to the uncircumcised versus the circumcised, the two groups of people. All right. So we got to wrap it up here. Let me know what your thoughts are. Leave your comments. This content is designed to spark conversation, to spark thought, to give us higher definition, to illuminate the Afrocentric perspective, the Nubian perspective that has been hidden from us through false teachings. And so this is my way of giving back so that we can clarify, to illuminate, to highlight the truth, right? And the African indigenous perspective. Until next time, stay tuned for my next episodes. Make sure you subscribe so that you can receive indications when they come out. Hit the like button and keep the faith. Peace.